Alderman Williamson.
Here.
Alderman Cone.
Unexcused.
Alderman Arnowitz.
Excused.
Alderman Kotar.
Unexcused. I'm sorry, excused.
Alderwoman Green.
Unexcused.
Chairwoman Tyus.
Present.
President Reed. You have two presidents.
We don't have a quorum here for this meeting, but I want to let you know that for a public hearing, you don't have to have a quorum. We're not going to try to pass out anything today. My name is Sharon Tyus, and I am the chair of the Public Employees Committee for the Board of Aldermen. We had asked that the aldermen come to hear the great things that you had to say when I attended the Civil Service Commission, but I was never intending to pass it out. 3 aldermen let me know that they couldn't make it, and a couple did not. So we're going to go ahead with the hearing anyway, and then we will have another hearing with a full quorum to debate the merits of this bill and if we want to pass it out. There are still some questions that I have that I would like answered, but I wanted anybody who wanted to have another chance to speak to the committee members of this board to have a chance to do so. Alderman Williamson is from the 26th Ward. Alderman Cohen, who is not here, is from the 25th Ward. Arnowitz, Mr. Alderman Arnowitz is from the 12th Ward, and he did ask to be excused. Alderman Kotar is from the 7th Ward, and he asked to be excused. And then Alderwoman Green is from the 15th Ward, and she was not excused. I think it's very important to be here and to hear you. I think raises and public employees are very important. I was touched by what I heard at the Civil Service Commission. I was also surprised because several people said to me that they had never seen a chair come to a meeting before. And so I thought that would be standard practice. So that was interesting to me. I heard you, and it's kind of haunted me somewhat because I believe in working class people. I come from a working class family. My mother worked in a factory. My father worked in a factory, my stepfather. So we were working class people. We worked hard. I was able to go to law school because they worked so hard. So I want to see everybody make a living wage, and I want to see the city treat everybody fairly. I will tell you, I made a statement at Civil Service, and I want to say this to you. I think of everybody as first responders who work for the city of St. Louis. It depends on what you need from the person as if they are your first responder. Right now, my attorney/clerk is my first responder. I need him to do what I need him to do, okay? If I need my trash picked up, refuse workers are my first responders. When we had water holes over on Kings Highway all winter long, the water department was out there across from the post office many, many, many nights in November and into December. You were my first responders. I definitely respect the police and the fire, but I think everybody is very important, and I want to hear from you. And I'm sorry that more aldermen could not make it, but we're going to go ahead because we had already set this up, and I did not want to cancel it at the last moment. So if it's one of your aldermen that's not here, get to them and let them know. If it's one of your aldermen that's not on this committee, let them know how you feel about your compensation packet. Don't just leave it here. You have to be active. And if you have unions that represent you, your unions also have to be active, not at this late date, but all through the process, making sure that people know how important all of you are. And I want to thank you, each and every one of you who've come out today to speak. I am the sponsor of the board bill, and so I'm going to leave from behind the desk and go out there, and then I'm going to be speaking with Mr. Richard Franks, who is the Director of Personnel for the City of St. Louis, and his staff members he brought. And after that, I'll come back so we won't look so empty here. I'm really embarrassed and sorry, but when I make a promise that I'm going to do something, I try to keep my word. So if other people don't show up, that's on them, and I will have words with them about coming to committee meetings, okay? When I'm on another committee, I show up, okay? If not, I try to let the chair know what's going on. So I don't know why they did not know how important this is, but this is very important, okay? And I did have it, even though I wasn't here last Friday, I had it announced last Friday and put in the agenda, so it's been on the books for a week. Saying all of that, I would like to come forward and kind of talk a little bit about Ordinance 68, which is the compensation bill, and mostly I will not be answering questions. I will come back here and let Mr. Frank and his staff answer questions, if that's all right with you. And then after he presents the bill, then I will let each of you who have signed up, and if any of you have not signed up, please do, and we will try to give you 5 minutes or so to speak, okay? Is that good enough? All right, thank you. You are the chair now, Mr. Okay.
Okay, we'll have the chairwoman of Public and Sports. She's going to go ahead and do her presentation. So you have the floor.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman. My name is Sharon Tyus, and I am the Chair of Public Employees, and I'm also the sponsor of Board Bill 68, which is the pay ordinance for the City of St. Louis. It's a very important ordinance that we do every year, and it has everybody's raises in it. We are very fortunate to have Mr. Richard Franks and his staff with him because they do a lot of work on making sure that everybody is included and do the best that they can with what we provide them and making sure that there are raises. I had already got information from him, so he had done he and his staff of memorandums of understanding with many of the, or maybe did you end up having all of the unions? All except for two. So he had memorandums of understanding, which is great. And I know they do the best that they can. Everybody will not be happy with this, and we might have some small changes that occur before we pass it out, but I know that they do the best that they can, and he is much more familiar with this. I agreed to sponsor it, to move it along, so we could try to get the raises as soon as possible onto the paychecks of people, but we don't want to move it so fast that we don't have a chance to listen to what people have to say about their concerns. And I thought that they had some pretty substantial concerns, which is why I wanted to have a public hearing. At this point, I would like for Mr. Frank and whoever he brings forward with him to come forward, and he can present the bill, because I don't like just having one person back there, so I'll come back there and ask questions also, if you don't mind. If you would come.
Very well.
Thank you.
So we have the Director of Personnel, Mr. Richard Franks. Thank you and welcome for coming, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Alderman, and thank you, Chairperson Tyus, for agreeing to sponsor this bill. I have with me tonight Linda Thomas, who is my Deputy Director, and also Kathleen Tanner, who is a Deputy Director, and our Classification Compensation Manager is out. But I want to start by saying that this board bill is a result of a long negotiation process, and it resulted in collective bargaining agreements with 11 of our 13 unions. We actually reached an agreement with 12 of the 13. Originally, we had reached an agreement with AFSCME, but there were some serious concerns raised, legitimate concerns about pay. And even though the union agreed with the compensation ordinance, the membership voted it down, and I've spoken to some of my knowledgeable friends from AFSCME already, particularly in the water division, and one of the things I want everyone to know is that we agreed, even though we didn't reach a collective bargaining agreement, we agreed to do a study of the compensation of water readers and water utility workers, some of the entry positions, the people who go out there in the freezing of night and dangerous conditions, and we have completed that study, and their concerns are valid in terms of their pay. And so I have set up a meeting on June 15th with the Director of Public Utilities, Kurt Scooby, and also the Director of Operations, Todd Walterman, to see how we can address that. So I want to thank everybody who's brought that to my attention. I've also corroborated what they've said about salaries. My niece happens to be the Midwest Customer Service Director for American Water and also Missouri and about 10 other states, and I got a big lecture from her about pay. So thank you for all sharing, that. But this ordinance essentially puts forth the terms that we've negotiated. We have signed collective bargaining agreements with all 7 of the trades unions. We have a signed collective bargaining agreement with the carpenters. We have a signed collective bargaining agreement with the Civilian Personnel Division, which represents hundreds and hundreds of employees. We have a signed collective bargaining agreement, very importantly, with Fire 73. I shouldn't say signed yet. We just finished the language today, but we have the agreement. It should be signed by tomorrow. And we have, after a very long process, a signed collective bargaining agreement with the SLPOA, and I believe Ed Clark is here. So who's the president of the SLPOA. This ordinance does a number of things, but the most important thing that it does is, number one, it enacts the pay raises in the form of a new compensation ordinance. We reached these collective bargaining agreements, and they're for 2 years. What it's done is we know that we don't have all the money that we'd like to have, and my department is already thinking about ways that within, I should say outside the box, that we might be able to release some additional funds for a second year. So while all the collective bargaining agreements are for 2 years, we do have a wage reopener in them, and we will come back to talk about wages only in September of 2019. Pursuant to the Board of Aldermen's actions and the mayor with Proposition is it P? I don't want to get confused here. The ordinance does provide for all commissioned officers to receive a $6,000 raise. It also provides for a $6,000 raise for all uniformed firefighters. In terms of the civilian employees, it provides for a 1.5% raise for all of them, and that's for a 2-year period as well. So it really is in accordance with our 30-step matrix. One of the things this ordinance does as well, which is different, unique, is that it also allows people who are at step 30. Many of the tradespeople are at that last step. Some of them have gone a long time without a raise. And I can tell you that we had at least 57 people who came over from the police department back in 9/1/13. Some of them have not seen raises for years because their positions were downgraded, or other people who've taken voluntary demotions or maybe physically could not do their job any longer and took a voluntary demotion. They haven't received pay raises for years. This will allow those people to have a pay raise as well for the 2-year period. So that's really pretty much it for the compensation. It is within the budget. The budget director is aware of it. I negotiated this with Todd Walterman, who is the director of operations, works closely with the budget division, and again, he was very supportive of it. In terms of other provisions, under Section 1, our pay ordinance is too big, so we wanted to clean it up. And my staff identified 89 classifications that we've been able to eliminate. We just didn't strike it. We're collaborative. We went out and sent messages, actual letters to each of the various operating departments, asking them if they'd used any of these classifications within the last couple of years or anticipated using them. They did not. And so we were able to recommend to this board that 89 job classes be eliminated. Furthermore, we had a number of overtime code changes. In order to keep up and get ahead of the curve with the Department of Labor, we've corrected overtime code changes for about 34 different job classes. And then lastly, we eliminated the P code. It just meant professional. Basically, in our system, it doesn't mean anything. You're either general or management. In terms of Section 2, I've already addressed the fact of the raises, so there's not much there except to say that in order to be responsible in our due diligence, we're recommending that for those people who have a personal vehicle, if they have that personal vehicle, they will be prorated. If they're not working or using that full-time, their vehicle allowance will be reduced. In terms of Section 3, which is education reimbursement, we just kind of moved that around, and we also removed, with the support of the comptroller, a section on substance and maintenance charges. Several years ago, before I got here, 14 years ago, I understand we used to have hospitals, and we also had a few facilities that the city paid for the residents and the occupancy. That has not been the case, and so with the support of the comptroller, we removed that. One of the things that we did for the trades that we're really happy about, and for all unions, is with the salary adjustment. In the past, if you came to the city and you didn't have the equivalent of a Department of Labor journeyman level certificate, you could not get hired at the special skills rate. And even if you got it a couple of months afterwards, you took, this is time that you're spending away from your families, away from your home. You're paying for it in many cases. And if you got it after you're hired, it didn't matter. I didn't think that was fair. So with all the unions, but particularly the trades, we have now changed that and are suggesting to the board that if you obtain that licensure or that training that's valuable, we want to retain our workers. We will move you up to that advanced rate. So that was an important change for us. And in terms of overtime, I have to say with police sergeants, we are now going to be paying them overtime for hours worked over 160 in a 28-day cycle. And I want to thank personally my Deputy Director, Linda Thomas, who also discovered that there were some other irregularities where the police division was not giving even straight time pay to otherwise non-exempt employees. All those people have been made whole, and I want to thank her and the SLPOA for its patience, and also the police division fiscal manager in terms of making sure that we're following the rules and doing the right thing. In terms of vacation, basically a lot of this ordinance is just housekeeping. The police division agreed to have their time, their vacation, their sick leave accumulate on a biweekly basis like all of the other cities' employees instead of on a daily basis. We view that as a positive move, trying to bring everything together. And then we also added some language about sick leave, making sure that the civilian personnel who are hired prior to 9/113 were hired or are treated the same way in terms of sick leave as commissioned officers. And I think that is pretty much it in terms of my summary. I'm more than happy to respond to any questions that the chairperson or Honorable Alderman Williamson would have, or any of the people along the way who would care to testify. But I think that's my summary, and I thank you for your support and your good questions. And again, I thank the employees who took the time, as well as you, ma'am, to come over to the Public Employees, or I'm sorry, the Civil Service Commission. In 14 years, I hadn't had that happen, so I was very pleased and surprised to have the honor of you coming over. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We are kind of, before he leaves, we're kind of honored because the previous person who sponsored the last pay bill is sitting right here. So we have the current and the previous person. And so Alderman Williamson sponsored it last year, I think it was. So do you have any questions?
No, not at this time, really. I just want to commend the Personnel Director for the great work he's doing, and looking at this pay bill. I think it's very important to help the employees of the city of St. Louis by lifting their self-esteem. You do a lot of hard work when you're out there, and people just really overlook the great things that you do. And I understand there's been some morale problems, mainly because of lack of pay raises. So it's very important, I think, by looking at this pay bill and having your input, sir, and just want to commend the chair lady for really taking this bill up, and I think it's going to really inspire the employees of the city of St. Louis, because they deserve it for all the hard work they're doing. So that's all I have to say at this time.
Thank you. I have a question. So can you explain, because I have a lot of people have approached me, and I already know the answer, but just want to explain why the police are getting the amount that they are versus the city employees?
That was because of the Proposition P, which was passed by the Board of Aldermen and the mayor, which was the special tax. And we're trying to systematically make sure that our salaries are competitive. And as I'm sure the board members know, as well as the SLPOA, St. Louis County and St. Charles still pay more than we do. We have richer benefits, but they have more, quite a bit more pay. County Executive Stenger raised the pay several years ago by about $8,000, and that is something what we're wanting to do. We still have 124 vacancies. We've implemented a program that if anybody, any permanent full-time city employee refers a candidate to the police academy and they graduate, they get a $500 bonus, which is wonderful. We've also worked with Judge Jimmy Edwards in terms of implementing a police cadet program. We're hopeful to get 50 to 100 new cadets through that program. And we're also working with the mayor's office and Judge Edwards in terms of working with some grant monies through Harris Stowe to increase the diversity of our police force, because it's not where it should be.
And so when you said about Proposition P, but the voters actually did, it went out to a vote, and the voters passed it. So the board just sent it to the voters.
That is
But there
correct.
actually was, we did not discriminate against the city employees and say we're going to give the police and the fire department a raise and not the same for city employees. There actually was a vote for the city employees, for the police and fire, which include all the people here. They had a chance to vote yes or no on that raise. Is that not correct?
That is correct, and it required a 60%, I believe,
Right.
and it did pass. So, we then are obliged to follow that.
Okay, can you explain a little bit for me the personal vehicle change and when they use their, and this is on the first page, it said eligible employees who use their personal vehicles with reduced frequency shall be entitled to a vehicle maintenance and use allowance. So how is that different than before?
What it used to be is that there was just a set rate for anybody who used their personal vehicle for work purposes, but this just prorates it. So it recognizes that if you don't actually use that vehicle for work purposes, let's say for four days in a pay period, or 5 days, or you're off a week, et cetera, it's only appropriate that that amount be reduced.
Okay. Okay, and then the other question I had was, so the MOUs, in the police, we have a different MOU for the sergeants than we do for the regular police, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Are they represented by different people?
They're represented by the same group, which is the SLPOA. They were originally represented by the SLPLO, which is the St. Louis Police Leadership Organization. I mentioned that there were two groups of employees that, unions or organizations that we did not reach an agreement. We're still in negotiations with the SLPLO. They themselves asked that we not meet again with them until the end of June. So we have not reached an impasse. And again, with AFSCME, that was the only other union out of our 13 that voted, not to have a signed MOU. But in good faith, we are continuing with our efforts to look at their pay, because that's what we're supposed to do, is pay a competitive, reasonable wage to people as well as benefits.
So how would that affect the pay ordinance if we're trying to move this along and we're not going to?
Excellent question, ma'am. I can accomplish some things. I don't have to, the board controls pay grades, but what I've been able to do is work with the different departments when we see we're having problems recruiting or retaining people, and through pay regulations, which I have under the charter, we can adjust the salaries. We can start them at a higher rate. I've done that recently with stationary engineers, with electricians, with civil engineers. We do that now with building inspectors, all sorts of different employees. And again, it's come to my attention, and we've studied and documented that many of our friends in the water division are not paid competitively, and that's why I'm having the meeting to see how we can address that through a pay regulation.
Okay. Now, one of the sensitive issues that I have is, it's been in the news about the police overtime and the abuse of overtime. And I actually came, Mr. Alderman Frank Williamson is the chair of Ways and Means, and he had the public safety director and the police chief out. And there were questions, and he allowed me to ask questions about the overtime. I told him I actually was going to have them come before me. It makes me very disappointed to see that the police officers themselves are able to somehow use loopholes or something and use our pay system to get overtime that appears to be unwarranted and unearned. And in fact, the police chief said on the record that he didn't have any, even though one of them, I think, was found not guilty, that they had broken police procedure and rules, and that he was not planning on bringing them back into employment. And I want to know, so as we push to have more pay, and I still have some real questions about benefits. I would actually want a documented, and I'm going to work with you, I want a documented, enumerated benefits. Do we pay for shoes? That's a benefit. Do we pay for uniforms? Do we pay for uniforms to be clean? I want to really do, because I think that we are comparing apples and oranges when we talk about how much more people make out in the county, but if we're given better benefits. I come from a union family, and my family would easily, my mother and her unions would give up money because they got dental benefits for us and eyeglasses. And so those benefits meant much more than that small little increase in pay. So I think we do ourselves a disservice when we keep pushing about getting more money, and we don't know, we can't enumerate exactly to the penny how many benefits they get and how much that's worth, okay? If they're able to do a second job, if they use the police cars, if they use our uniforms, if they get hurt while they're doing a second job. I think we have to rein that in, okay? And I'm a police person, but I think that has to be reined in. And I'm especially disappointed when I look at the amount of money for overtime. As an attorney, that's a felony. That's a felony. That's stealing, okay? Even though you got found not guilty. What the police chief said, and the question I asked him was, even if you didn't get found guilty criminally, did you break police rules? Yes. And I want to know, and I'm asking you, and you may not be the best person, because I'm also saying it to the police chief and to the comptroller, how we can tighten that up so that that won't be happening again.
Yes, it has been disturbing to us that we've seen, for instance, that police lieutenants and even some police captains have received overtime. They're not authorized to do that.
Right.
And my department, we were contacted by the budget director, and then all we did as department personnel, we don't see their payroll. It's done on PeopleSoft, and it's sent directly to the comptroller. And Linda, please correct me if I'm wrong about that. But, you know, that gets transmitted to the comptroller's office for review. But
So you don't see their overtime?
we don't in personnel. We would see it after the fact. We did see, for instance, and I'm looking into it, that there's at least one officer, a police sergeant, who was making an enormous amount of overtime. We noticed those things. But I can say that, you know, what we have done is had conversations with Judge Edwards. I have personally with the mayor. We've looked and tracked these overtimes, abuses, and these large amounts of overtime, and it results in the comptroller doing an audit and issuing audit findings. So I'm hopeful that Judge Jimmy Edwards and Commissioner Hayden will take the appropriate action to comply with the compensation ordinance, because that is our governing law. And if it says police lieutenants don't get overtime, they don't get overtime. In terms of the actual amount of hours worked, what has happened is, and again, this is my understanding and explanation from the police division, is many officers have legitimate secondary employment, but they can't work for a political subdivision. They can't work for another government entity. And so they get their paycheck from the city, and that's where the amount they get paid from the contract would in fact be different in many occasions than what their normal rate of pay would be. So it gets fed into PeopleSoft, and then it becomes adjusted into a number that doesn't look quite right.
Okay.
So that's really, I think, the best person to discuss that with would certainly be Comptroller Green, her staff, as well as the police division. You know, we've notified them, we've done our due diligence, and when we see something egregious, we call it to their attention. But it is an area of concern. One of the things I think I said in front of the Civil Service Commission is that Deputy Director Thomas noticed that with some of these contracts, and this is not the Police Officers Association's fault, but with some of these contracts where they're supposed to reimburse the city for services, they don't.
Right.
You know, last year, I think it was 2016, or perhaps it was 2017, but it was within the last 2 years, there was $1.1 million that the city didn't collect.
Right.
This went all the way back to 2014. So there's money there that is the city's money that is owed us by these contractors that we're not getting.
Right.
So, and you know, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. You know, when I have to worry about that I can't buy new pens and pencils after May, and then I see this going on,
Right.
it's wrong.
Right. So and the other thing I want to say that I've had a real concern about, and this is not necessarily personnel, but Ways and Means, is that we're putting money in also besides this money for overtime that could not be used appropriately. Because I did get the comptroller's report from the audit she did last year, and when it was about $5 million. So, okay, if you show me $5 million missing, then every little penny you spend is going to now have a procedure for me, okay? That's in my own household. Besides that, we also have this thing of we have to pay for when they get found not guilty, and then they come back and we get sued civilly. And if we settle, we're having these big amounts of money that are coming from our budget, okay?
That's correct.
And that makes it very hard when I'm telling people you can only get a small raise. We can't cut grass, we can't tear down buildings, we're not doing the things we're supposed to, but we're making this settlements, NSOs, whatever, we're making these settlements. And so I am going to be reaching out to you, because I've been, you know, before, I've reached out to you even before I was the chair about testing the police. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be reaching out to you about at least bringing somebody in to talk about not insurance for people who are doing the right thing, but insurance for people who break the law. Should the city really be paying these settlements if you've broken police procedure and police law, I mean, and our laws, and even though you get found not guilty, but we're still having to pay millions of dollars in settlement. That is hard on the city's budget, so I will be reaching out
I
to you.
agree, ma'am, and I think there's conversations at the highest level of city government with different elected officials.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I had turned this thing off. Go ahead.
Developing a policy on what we call indemnification. And for instance, I've seen in the past, I won't name any names, but there's officials who have clearly been negligent or permitted activities, and as a result, the city has paid $350, $450, even more money than that, and then the city pays for their lawyers and then settles it and picks up the bill.
Exactly.
So, I know I have spoken with the city councilor about the need for an indemnification policy, so we are working on that.
That would be great. I, as an attorney, if I practice law outside of here, I have to pay insurance. Doctors have to do insurance. We cannot, as a city, maybe that didn't happen years ago. We didn't have all these lawsuits, but in a litigious society that we have now, we have to have something else, and it cannot be, I'm not, for anybody who's doing what they're supposed to and following the law, I'm all for the city indemnifying them, but if you're outside the scope of what you're supposed to be doing, I don't see why we would have to use our budget for that, and also then telling other people, we can't give you the same kind of raises, and but we have this money to just kind of, it's not given away, because the people certainly have a right to sue if they've been wronged, but it's very hard for me to see that. And I know that's something, I want to work with you on that. Okay?
I appreciate that. It will be any resource that we can, and I know Alder Williamson knows that from 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, city employees got nothing. And then we were furloughed in 2008 and 2009. So we've lost a lot of ground, and it's very difficult. And that is why, again, one of the things that we've got as a wage reopener is that we're hoping to have some appropriate revisions to our drop policy, which is the policy that allows an employee to retire, keep working, and it's put in a special account. But then they're allowed to come back and continue to earn creditable service. I've talked to Jeff Rorter, who's the business manager for the SLPOA. We're going to be meeting with him about some possible reform to PRS. And I've got agreements with all of our other unions that they're open to that conversation as well. So anything I can do. I'm all too painfully aware that St. Louis County is giving its employees a 3% raise this year. And the best that I could do with what I have is
I understand.
a 1.5 for 2 years. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we won't give up.
Well, we have $6 million coming back in a couple of years, because we will be finished playing for the football stadium. So I continue to push that. And I know that they already want it back at the convention center, but my druthers is that we put that money into some other things, or at least give them a little portion of it, and we keep the majority portion to make ourselves financially solvable, so that we can give decent raises, and that we can have people that have a livable wage, okay?
Yes, I
earn a
understand.
living.
I do also, all the women have side-by-side comparisons of benefits and everything charted out. We have very, very rich benefits at the city. But as I've told all the unions, it's time for discussion about how we want to divvy up our money.
Right.
Young people. The good news is that the retirement systems that are under my purview are very healthy. Employees' retirement system is 82.5% funded. And
Good job, thank you.
Thank you. And FRP is very well funded. It is already 60% funded. It has only been in existence for 5 years, and it's in the very top percentiles of all public plans. And what's really exciting is that, and I testified before the commission, we used to have firefighters. 52% of them went out on disability at age 39, average age. Since FRP's inception, we've only had 7 in 5 years. So we really have to look at this as a systemic problem, do our due diligence, and be aggressive and not be afraid to tell the truth.
Correct.
I'm too old to.
Okay, and one last question, then I'll let people, in 17F, you talk about employees who pay into us, we're talking about vacation time, and we use a cutoff date of 9/1/2013 to separate the employees. Why is that date used?
That was because of a predecessor agreement that the Police Board of Commissioners entered into with the SLPOA. And so I was bound, to honor that, and of course did in good faith.
Okay.
So that's why there's a different rate. That's based on the collective bargaining agreement that I inherited.
Okay,
And I'll have a few more CBAs for you in a few days.
thank you. Okay, if you don't have anything else to present, I would
No.
like to let the people who signed
Thank
up.
you for the good questions, ma'am.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Just start. Okay, we have pro and opposition. Nobody signed up for pro. We have several oppositions, so we're just going to go down the line, okay?
Mr. Eric Weisner.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and thank you, Alderman, for having the decency to attend. I will be speaking to my Alderwoman. If you wouldn't mind indulging me for a minute, I have a question I submitted during the mayoral candidacy that will highlight some issues that we have. It'll take a couple minutes before addressing this specifically.
All right.
Mayoral candidates, my question to all of you is this. Which of you will change the fiscal mentality of this city? As a citizen, I, among the vast majority in this room, am paying $11 a month for refuse collection. Obviously, that's 14 now. The number will be different as we go along. The money was approved by the Aldermanic Board with Order 68768, fiscal year July 2010, to provide desperately needed equipment to facilitate the service provided by the Refuse Division. To date, that is no less than $87 million, now it's about $120 million, from our pockets for this purpose, none of which has gone to the purpose for which the Board approved it. 27 of the 54 non-specific trucks, those would be alley trucks or combinations, used by the division are model year 2000. An additional 12 are at least 10 years old. With a life expectancy of 8 years and 10 to 12,000 hours, that's an additional 8 that should be budgeted and being built to be replaced at this moment. 7 of the 24 specific task trucks are also 10 years old. Those are the cart trucks. That means 46 of the 61 trucks afforded the division are junk, and 8 more will be before they can be replaced. The 4 currently ordered isn't even a Band-Aid on a severed limb. In addition, in the last year and a half, the division has seen a reduction in labor allocation of 12 operators, from 84 to 72, the people who actually do the job, and a labor foreman 1 and labor foreman 2, the managers who facilitate the workers and respond to publics, aldermanic boards, and the elected leaders' issues and complaints. We can't continue to operate without looking forward and maintaining our infrastructure as we go, focusing on the next new thing and allowing the services we provide to fall into disarray. With all the hands on deck and extreme extra effort, which we're still making, even with outstanding skills, the refuse operators can't get the job done, and they're not the only division that's being neglected. The citizens, and more importantly, the members of the board who receive the phone calls know this to be true, having seen the trucks on holidays, Saturdays, weekends. Isn't it time we bring some sensibility, accountability, and efficiency to apartments and give the integrity back to our Board of Aldermen, who you asked to take the citizens' money to provide these services and then don't? Perfect example, that $11 a month. We never saw a dime of it. He was talking earlier about the taxes the citizens approved. We have currently a 30-year pay matrix. They did increase our hiring wage at Refuse Division from $14.61 to $16.21 an hour. You're talking about an individual who has to have a very high driving skill, coordination skill, the logistical ability to manage on his own in a pretty physically and mentally abusive situation. It's not enough. My thing is this. We have given up. All the new people who are coming in the door get less vacation than we do. We no longer accumulate sick leave toward our retirements. He now wants to cut the tail end off of the drop program. It's just give. Now he's wanting to give the 30-year people and greater additional raises. And SLPOA, I apologize for the people who've come in that didn't get raises, but as he expressed earlier, we went 6 years with no raises. We got a single $29 raise once, and that was followed immediately by 2 furlough years. And us specifically as 10-hour employees were impacted by the adoption of 2 pay ordinances ago. We lost 55 hours the minute you signed that bill because of the fact that we were 10-hour employees under FLSA. We weren't paid overtime for the days that we worked that we had been for decades. We just keep giving. The $6,000 that the police are going to give, and by the way, that's not all. They also get an additional benefit package. I think it's almost $10,000 in total, isn't it? That's including right. So.
Just turn around and talk.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Because we're having a report.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they were to give Now, I can only speak for myself because I don't have the other people's numbers, but if they were to give me that $6,000, it would still leave me $2,000 below what the pay matrix said my 20-year seniority should represent at a paltry 1.5% increase over 30 years. I don't know where the money's going. I don't know what kind of magical mystery tours people are taking or what these new things are, but we as a city have to do better. And be perfectly honest, we're in a lot better shape than the water department is, because I can work a second job. The water department, and we have a gentleman here who will represent, will give you an example, or I believe he has it with him, where a gentleman paid $680 for health care for his family. Working 20 hours overtime on a 2-hour paycheck, he brought home only $623. We can't have that in this city. We have a gentleman here who formerly worked for the water department that could give you an example. In the past, you would go through 4 or 5 steps to get to max on what the city says is the maximum you can earn for your position. And then they would get 2 pay raises a year. They would get a merit increase and a cost of living increase. I was the benefit of one of those, so the people that are coming in behind me are even a little less off than I am. It's not enough. You know, we have to be able to make a living. We're the guys out there busting our butts every day. And now we want to give our commissioner another $110 a week instead of $110 a pay instead of giving 20 to 5 people who desperately need it. Why are we giving people who've had a career here, who also have the benefit of coming in and extending their pension on the high end of the algorithm, a pay raise? I'm sorry, I realize that sounds kind of selfish, but people need to be able to eat. They shouldn't have to decide between paying rent, buying a car, and feeding their kids.
Thank you. Hold on, just a minute. Alderman Williams, do you have any questions?
Just a few, yeah. Well, yeah, we appreciate what you're saying, and you're right, it's difficult, and I think the city of St. Louis over the years have done a very, very poor job in managing the revenue that we're getting in it, and we need to come up with some ideas to generate more revenue. And I don't sit on the streets committee, but I've attended several of those meetings, and I had a hard time voting for the increase of the trash pickup myself. But they sold the idea to us that, you know, we need more cameras because we got illegal dumping throughout the areas, especially in North St. Louis, and they're going to receive new trash trucks, refuse trucks. And I get quite a few complaints from my constituents, especially from the rollout court trash trucks. And what's been taking place in the last several years when they come down the street and they pick up those rollout carts, where they're just leaking hydraulic fluid all over the streets. You know, I mean, the trucks are just in that bad shape. And then talking to the street department this year in several meetings, they're saying it's going to take at least 2 years for them to revamp that fleet because of the lack of revenue that's coming in to replace those trucks, which is a shame. But that's the case, is what they tell us. So, you know, we continue to kick the can down the road, and I think what we have to look at is who's really managing these departments. There's no way in West Egypt that these departments ought to be in this bad shape when it comes to the equipment, because it's being managed incorrectly. Now, I know we don't have a lot of money coming in the city of St. Louis in revenue, but at the same time, it has to be a better way to manage the money in order to keep the equipment, you know, coming in and restoring the equipment, fixing it, and then buying new equipment. So, you know, we feel your pain. Appreciate your comments, and I just, hopefully we can do something soon to correct this problem. It's not a quick fix. It's going to take several years to correct, but I think we need to hold the feet to the fire, the mayor's office and all the other city departments to manage this city in a better way. We got to do a much better job than that. So that was my comment. Thank you.
Well, if it's any consolation to you, and thank you, because I know you were both involved in the conversation. I had personal conversations with her relative to the increase in refuse charges that was in fact appropriated to the appropriate places where the $11 previously was not.
Right.
So we are in fact getting the equipment. The Trash Task Force has been supplied and ramped up,
Right.
and they're doing their job. So things are improving, just not fast enough, and they shouldn't have been allowed to get there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're still bleeding. We're just slow down the bleeding a little bit. And then when it comes to, like, your pay raises, like you said, the $14 an hour to the $16 an hour, you know, that's ridiculous. We got to do better than that. We got to pay our men and women more. They deserve more. Because what's taking place now, you know, you have this shift, so when you do receive some employees, the refuse, water department, they have a chance to go in the county and somewhere else and get another job, just like the police. They leave, they go. You know, and those jobs are skilled jobs. You know, you have to be able to drive those heavy vehicles, all that tonnage around, and be, you know, willing to get up early in the morning, be alert, you know, and drive through the winter and the snow time and what have you. So you need to be compensated. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, excuse me, I have questions. So, your union has been negotiating with personnel, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, have you made any suggestions of how things you would like to see change or what could change?
To be honest with you, no. I've only complained about the fact that we as employees, myself, I'll be 20-year senior in November, have had take in this entire time, and there's never been any give.
And so what I've always found to be is that the people who actually do the job often have the best ideas about how things can change. I agree with complaining. I'm a complainer. But what I also will tell you is that I will try to, I was on the phone earlier today talking to Joanne Williams, who is my really good friend, about, well, okay, these drivers are, okay, I keep hearing people say we don't have drivers. Well, how about if we have a training program? How about if we do this? Because I'm bouncing this off of her because she's been negotiating for a long time. So I'm saying to you, since you're out there in the fields, we need you to also make suggestions about how things could change, okay? I'm
No,
just
no,
telling-
I apologize for laughing, but I won't go through the first three rules with you, but I will tell you that rule number 4 and rule number 5 you're asking me to violate. Rule number 4 is don't create work for anybody, and rule number 5 is don't outshine anybody who outranks you. I have
come and tell
gotten
me,
a training
okay?
program implemented in ours through our MOU.
Okay.
And it is currently being revamped, and I brought example after example after example to the table in refuse and to the director of streets, how we can make things better and save tremendous amounts of money, be more efficient and more accountable. It's not going to happen because it creates work for somebody.
So next week or the next week afterwards, you and I will have lunch. And I want to hear all suggestions. You don't change things if you don't listen. You don't know what you don't know, okay? And so I've been around, even though the chair of streets is Alderman Boyd, I was on streets for 12 years before this, okay? So, and I was the vice chair most of those times. I've been on streets for a long time. I'm not now, but it's always been something that's very important to me. Refuge is very important to me. Picking up the trash is what I get the most complaints about. So it's very important that happens. So I want to know about suggestions. And also, if you're unhappy, if you come with suggestions, maybe it's something that people have not thought about. Ms. Williams and I, we argue about, because she's like, well, no, you don't understand. But we're going through a process where I'm trying to understand. I'm saying, well, no, this. Well, what about this? I think you come out with good ideas when you do that, okay? So I'm a brainstormer. I believe in everybody doing it. Most times when I call city divisions, I don't talk to the head of the division. I talk to the person who can get it done. That can be the secretary, the administrative assistant, or whatever. But I do find that people who are doing the work often know ways that. So if you could violate your rule with me, I would love to take you out to lunch and just hear things.
Oh,
and
I'm happy to do the work. It's when I present it to somebody else. I can't get
so
anybody
we're just
else
gonna
to
go
do
right
it.
around them.
Right.
And present it to me, because
I would
I
be
actually
happy
can
to.
write ordinances, and then we can vote on some things, okay? So if you have, I'm just saying, don't just, I like complaints, and you should say that's not fair to me, but I also like people who come with solutions, okay? Is that fair?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and
I'll
you
be
have
happy
my
to
number,
present
and you
them.
and I have talked, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Mr. Corey Henderson?
How's everybody doing?
Fine, how are you?
All right. I'm Corey Henderson. I work with the St. Louis City Water Department. I've been with the city almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in December. And when I first started with the St. Louis City Street Department, I wasn't making $15. And 5 years later, I'm still not making $15. And when I got hired on with the street department, he told me I'm getting hired on because I'm coming in with CDL's Class A, and I have a very impressive resume. So you fit the bill 100%. And in 5 years, I'm still not making $15 an hour as a heavy equipment operator. And I know it's a new mayor in office, but it was a slap in the face to turn on the TV in the morning and see the old mayor advocating for $15 for minimum wage, and when you have employees that work directly up under you that's not even close to making $15, it's a slap in the face. And I have to come, do my job, and maintain a positive attitude and everything. The morale is extremely low. If you look in the private sector, like Indeed, you look up, if it's 18 jobs for heavy equipment operators, at least 15 is base salary is $18 an hour with benefits. You know, it's bad. You know, working with the water department, we out on the streets all time of the night. And the saddest thing about this is you hear citizens say all the time, oh man, you work for the water department. I know who making all the money. And you like, golly, boy, only if you knew. Only if you knew. We make money if you live in the water department. If you don't have any overtime, it don't make sense to me. I'm 40 years old, that a grown individual that has children, a family, everything like everybody else, in 2 weeks, you don't bring home at least $1,000. That is sad, man. Like, it is terrible. And I know the water department generates so much money for the city of St. Louis. Like, it helped refuse out. You pay your trash bill through your water bill now. That's how much money that the water department generates. And even what you were saying earlier, like with the uniforms and all this, forestry, parks, street department, refuse, everybody get at least a shirt, something, a hat, a jacket. They give us St. Louis City Water Department vests, and that's it. Everything else you have to come out your pocket and pay for. Like, that's ridiculous. We make
Let
the
me
most
stop
money.
You come out your pocket to pay for what?
All the rest of our clothes. Like, whatever you wear to work, like every other department, at least get uniforms, at least get shirts. I know when I was at street department, they gave us winter coats, jackets, T-shirts, all type of things. But the water department, like, we make the most money and we get the less. We are, I feel like the water department, we are the slaves of the city. We are the ones that have to come out in 24 hours a day, 365, 7 days a week, no matter what. The water department would not ever close. And the type of conditions that we work in, like over the winter time, this past winter, we was in state of emergency. All the water main breaks, we was on 12-hour shifts. 7 to 7. I worked nights completely. And that whole time, I think it was 3 months long, I missed 4 days. 4 days. Do you know I worked 14 12-hour shifts, and you know what my take-home pay was? $3,100. $3,100, that's it. And I worked 14 12-hour shifts. I bust my chops. Didn't ask anything. Didn't ask. I come in, it's times where, look, we already short at the water department. So the fleet is diminished. The morale is extremely low, but we still come in. We still come in and perform our jobs. And over that, and afterwards, you know what we got? A letter in the break room that says, state of emergency over. That's it. I'm not saying because we get paid to do a job. I'm not saying that they should do anything for us. But Jesus Christ, at least we maintained and rolled that out the way we did. At least you could have went to Little Caesars and bought $55 pizzas and said, here, you know what I'm saying, pizza party or something, anything. But nothing. Like, it's nothing. Like, I'm just now getting my own truck. I probably had my truck, 2 months now? 3 months? Just now getting my own truck. It ain't about seniority. It's you. Some people get trucks, and you know what I'm saying. It just wasn't enough. You know, a lot of terrible like the whole state of emergency. I was the nighttime salt truck. I was the nighttime salt guy. 230. That's the number of the truck. 23415 is terrible. When I say terrible, I mean you don't understand how terrible it is. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I had to come salt. I'm on Goodfellow and Sebler Court. I don't know if you're familiar with Goodfellow and Sebler Court, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had to get out that truck because it released so much salt on the street. The blades wouldn't work. The truck getting stuck, the hydraulic system messed up, but this is what we got. This is all we have. And our job is to make sure that our guys are safe. So if it's water, the salt truck got to come salt. So it's up to me to make sure that it's right. So when I get off in the morning, I got to make sure that truck is maintained. I got to make sure that truck is up and running for the next guy to come in the morning for him to be able to do the same thing during the day.
Excuse me, Mr. Henderson?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your position?
I'm a heavy equipment operator.
Okay, thank you.
And like, before I came with the city, I worked, and I was making $20 an hour as a dump truck driver. It got, you know about the outside world, dump truck driving, you kind of slow sometimes, and it got to a point where I was only working 2 or 3 days a week. So I'm like, city want to hire me, I'm going to take this job, and I'm going to roll with it, because I looked, when they sent me my package, it said you can start off with this, and you can max out at this. So I'm like, I'm not there now, but I'm gonna stick with it, and I'm gonna get there. Shh. Little did I know, I'm never gonna get there.
How long have you been with the city? Wait,
December 9th, the December 3rd will make me 5 years. And like I said, when I started, I wasn't making 15. When I was making 14, I forgot what it was, when I was at the street department, when they hired me in. I left the street department to go over to the water department to make more money. I dropped classification. I was a heavy equipment operator 2 at the street department. But I dropped classification to a heavy equipment operator 1. So I started, I just figured what I lose in dollar amount, I make up in overtime. So, but I'm just like, okay.
When you were at the street department, were you full-time or were you
I was full-time. I was full-time with benefits, you know, but it was like outside of snow call at the street department. And I was a street sweeper driver. So you absolutely get whatever, like it's terrible. Like your paychecks every 2 weeks is terrible at the street department. Like it's no overtime, no anything outside of like snow call during the wintertime. You know, when it's snow, you got to go out there and shovel snow or whatever the case may be. But it's been nights at the water department on that state of emergency where I drove the forklift, I drove the boom truck to go pick up the equipment, drove the salt truck. They said they needed a dump truck driver. It was nice. I was the only one there. And I had to do everything. And these guys can vouch for me. I'm not just saying this, like this is serious. So if I didn't show up that day, it didn't get done.
we got other.
Okay. But I'm sorry, I hate to ramble, but it's just extremely frustrating. Like, and believe me, more people from the water department can express, but the morale is beyond low. It's beyond low. You know, you have people that's like, hey, you know, then I'm gonna say this. Even like when the 2 gentlemen from Leclerc Gas got murdered like 2 years ago, Ameren UE, Leclerc Gas, MSD, American Water, everybody else had a safety meeting like within 24 to 48 hours about things to do. Literally, we didn't have a safety meeting for about a month and a half. Didn't have a safety meeting for about a month. Is that accurate? About a month?
Mr. Henderson, I
Okay.
need you to address us. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. So Yeah, it's like it's terrible. It's terrible. Like I like the people I work with and I like the job itself, but overall it's hard to try to ride this out. It's really hard to try to ride it out. You know, I always thought like, man, you get you a city job, man, you pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Like city jobs should be pretty good job. But I do know like the city of Ferguson is paying $16.75 starting off. And what I learned that the St. Louis City Water Department is the lowest paying public utility outfit in the whole country. The lowest in the whole country. Any city public utilities, St. Louis City Water Department is the least paid.
Okay. Alderman Williamson, have any questions?
Really, you know, heck of a story. Now, I just wanted to be correct. Now, you're getting paid how much an hour now?
Honestly, I have no, it's like 14 something. I
Okay.
have no idea what it is. Like, I really, it's not 15. It's not even 14.85. I can tell you
Okay.
that.
But when you left the street department, you were making what, $20 an hour?
No.
Okay, I'm
Not
clear.
when I left the street department. That's like
Okay.
14.61.
Okay.
Okay, I was making 14.61. So
I thought I heard you say.
no.
when you worked
I said before I came to the
The dump truck driver, private industry,
in
you're
the
saying?
private industry, I was making $20 an hour.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's pretty much
And
all
a
I
heavy
had.
equipment operator, you know, that's, you know, you responsible for a whole lot of stuff.
Sure you are, yeah, and that's
Yeah,
a skilled job.
yeah, it's definitely a skilled job, you know. And I paid a lot of money to get Class A license
Right,
to
that's
make
right.
$14 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, we
yeah.
appreciate the hard work you're doing, man. I tell you, you know, kudos
I'm not the only
to.
one.
Oh,
I mean,
know.
those guys work
Kudos to you and kudos to the department, all them, the men and women. You know, we understand, like I said earlier, the morale's low, and that's something we need to do. We need to really, you know, give some type of incentive to uplift your pay. This uniform situation is kind of ridiculous. I would think they should do a better job in furnishing uniforms too.
They give us gloves
Okay, that's about it.
and a
huh?
hard hat.
And a hard hat and say, go get it, huh?
Yes, sir.
No boots, no shoes, nothing.
Well, the guys that get in the hole, they get the knee-high water boots, but that's about it. You know,
Okay.
everybody get
Right.
a boot voucher, but you know, it's only like you only get like $50 or $75 on a boot voucher, and you know, you can go up the wind over on San Francisco. You
So
go get your pair of
explain
boots out
that.
there. You might be, your voucher
Right.
gone. You are gonna have to spend
Okay,
money.
well, now explain that voucher. What you mean, you get a voucher to go buy the boots?
Yeah, you get a voucher. I think like some people get like $75 if I'm not mistaken. Some people might get $100. I don't think it's
Right.
$100, but I'm not too
The,
sure. So I'm
the
only,
water department gives you the voucher to go purchase the boots. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to be clear how it works.
Yes, water
Okay.
department, but for what they give you,
Right, I
you still
understand.
have to come out your pocket and buy you a decent pair of boots. You know, because it's not gonna cover the amount
Everyday
for the
boots, yeah.
No, it's not gonna cover.
Steel toe boots and what have you.
It's not
right.
gonna cover a decent
Right, you
boot.
still got to go to,
It's not.
well, they don't have Gravois bootery anymore, but whatever, wherever you're
They
going
have a
now.
place over on San Francisco in the 51, 52.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's called Win.
Right. It's in
Like,
the first,
yeah.
It's in the first ward. I
Yeah,
know.
I'm saying. So if you go get boots out there, you probably go get boots in your next pay period.
And they're expensive.
Yeah.
They sure are. Okay, I appreciate it. Keep up the good work, man. I know it's tough. Stay strong, you know, I know that's tough too, but we appreciate you. That's all I have right now.
And Mr. Henderson, I think you're one of the reasons I really want to have this meeting for sure. You're the one, I think that you came to the Civil Service Commission. Were you there?
No.
Well, it was somebody else. So, I'm sorry, then, it was somebody else who talked about, from the Water Department, about that his raise did not cover the increase in his insurance. And that's always of immediate concern for me, because health insurance is very important to me. But you're telling me that in 5 years, you have not had an increase of $1.
No, ma'am. At all.
$1.
Not $1.
So you started at 14-something, and you're still at 14-something.
I'm still at 14 something.
In 5 years.
In 5 years, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I couldn't make this up.
So if I asked you, I'm an attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
If I asked you to see some of your pay stubs, you could show me that, right?
Oh, I go to my truck right now.
Wait, I just asked you, could you show me? That's
Okay,
all.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's very disturbing to me.
Oh, extremely.
Let me-
I have a son that's a senior in college and a son that's a freshman in college. Luckily, my son that's a freshman in college, he played basketball. You know, I don't know where he get it from. He can get it from me.
Well, let me say
but
this
he
to
got a
you.
scholarship.
So let me say this to you. So from October, November, we had a water problem up and down Kings Highway. I live on Maffett Place. My side of Maffett Place actually is tied into the water. So every time you had to turn the water off and work down at the in front of the post office,
Yes, ma'am.
you also were working on my street, okay? Right. And I want to say, so I appreciate. I know.
I was out there that night when it went all over the place.
So let me finish.
Okay,
I'll let
I'm
you
sorry.
talk. Okay. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work that you've done, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So the Chair of Public Employees is going to be an advocate for the Water Department, because I do know how many, you were out there during all of the holidays. I know that for a fact, because it
Yes,
was
ma'am.
impacting my house, because you guys kept turning my water off, only on my side of the street, having everybody on my side of the street call my house. We had to go and get bottled water and hand out to people, but I do know that it's very disappointing to me, and I'm sad to hear somebody work for 5 years and don't get a dollar raise. I would prefer, and I know people are not gonna like this, I call them all white shirts, important white shirts, not get big raises, and the working class people get raises. So we gotta do better than this. I'm hoping that we can find some wiggle room in this budget to do better than this. If I can, I can't promise you anything, but if there's any way we can, I will promise you I will work on trying to do, because that's embarrassing for that to happen for me.
Yes, ma'am. And what I learned I was truly saddened by, and it's utterly disturbing, over that water main, over the state of emergency we had more emergencies on the south side of St. Louis than we did on the north side of St. Louis, and it was the equal amount of breaks. But the fastest breaks, the breaks got fixed faster on the south than it did the north. Like on the north side, we'll go set cones up, and we'll get to that. But on the south side, those jobs are being completed.
I hear you. I will say the Chair of Public Utilities lives in South St. Louis, so, and I'm saying the Chair of the Public Utilities for the Board of Aldermen, the alderperson who's the chair lives in South St. Louis. So that helps sometimes who your chairperson is. When I was the Chair of Public Safety before I got gerrymandered, we got quite a few things done because I was the Chair of Public Safety. So that's one of the perks of as you rise through the ranks of political office and you get some seniority, you try to use that to help your community, okay? So,
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm not going to get mad at her if she was pulling her rank to make sure that happened, but I have noticed that about other things. So you're not the first person to tell me that. I do notice the unfairness of some of the city services. That'll be addressed in a different time. Right now, what I want to just address is the pay ordinance and the proper paying of people. So I have no further questions. I want to thank you for taking your time.
All right.
Are you going to stay to the end?
Yes, ma'am.
I would love to get your number because I really would like to see some of those pay stubs.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Most definitely.
I'm serious because
Yeah,
I will
I'm-
be using them on the floor of the Board of Aldermen. Okay.
Please,
Maybe
please.
against my own ordinance that I'm supporting. Okay. Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Ready? Mr. John Williams?
Good evening.
I was sitting back there listening to everyone, and the first thing I'm going to say, yes, it is a total embarrassment to all of us,
Mr. Williams, do you work for the Water Department? Okay.
maintenance department, that these seats are not filled because of the fact, reason I say that, because one, they called, you can write this down, they still call the place the plantation. And if you knew what a plantation was back then, that's what it is right now. And the reason I was so upset that these people are not here today is because if they had a fire in their district right now, I can guarantee you that hydrant is going to work. And it's going to have water coming out of it to fix that, to repair that house, keep it from flaming on another house, to keep it from killing other people. But you don't have enough respect to come here and see us or hear us this evening? That's a slap in the face. After 17 years of not giving us cost of living raise, you mean to tell me that you come here today and still haven't found a way to prepare for the budget for us to get a raise, but you prepared for the police to get a raise for $6,000, but you prepared for our foreman to get a raise of $5,200 they didn't even ask for. But you tell the workers that we don't need a raise of 1.5, and then you raise their insurance 2.5, that knocks the raise down 1%. 2020, we don't make $1,000 in 2 weeks. How are we supposed to live? Explain that to me. You guys, and he discussed one thing. He discussed every skilled worker he had that was supposed to be getting benefits, engineers. Guess what? We're all engineers. We're all skilled workers. I've got guys sitting back here right now that can put pipes together in half an hour, put you back in water. There's guys back there now that can put a corp in and put a whole company back in water. There's guys back here right now that does work that a plumber cannot do that makes $40 an hour.
I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, what do you do? What is your position at the water
I'm a
department?
maintenance worker, and I repair pipes in the bigger pipes.
Okay.
But at the same time, we are skilled to put corps in too. So I can put a corp in at any time. We work around the ship. We work 16 hours a day. Your police don't even do that. Your fire department don't even do that. And the first thing they tell us is you can't receive another job because we have your hours 24 hours a day. You go home at 12, you get off at 12. You get home by 12:30, 1 o'clock. It's time to come back to work at 7:30. But you have to do that in order to make a living. It's hard.
So you're not allowed secondary employment?
No, we can't have it. We can't have it. And if we try to get it, if we try to get a second job, we have to inform them that we have a second job, and they have to go through all types of paperwork in order to say we got a second job.
So they have to allow you? You
We
have
ha-
to
they
get
have
permission?
to allow us
Okay.
to get a second job. 24 hours. Yeah. And that's sad. And like I said, we got guys in meter and tap, distribution, that does work that a plumber can't even do. But with the pay scale we get, what do we get? A slap in the face. He said 1.5, and like that was really a boost up in 2020. And like the man said, we don't make $1,000 in 2 weeks without doing 16 hours every other day. That's sad. That's sad. Now, explain to me this. There was a fire last year on 39th, one of the biggest fires in St. Louis. It pulled water from the reservoir.
39th and what? Do you know?
I was asking the guys, what was that on 39th and that big fire over there that had those cars in it? It had cars all in it. It burned for 2 days. It's right behind us. It burned, that thing burned for 2 days. You tell me which hydrant didn't work. When they pulled all the water out of this place up here on Shaw and told them to pump up the water from the main plant, they pumped it up and you still got water. You received water to put that fire out. Did anybody say thanks? They said thanks to the fire department. They said thanks to the police. They can't do a job without us. Go over here on Gamble and try to turn a hydrant off today. I bet you get shot at. Go turn a hydrant off on Gamble over there on DeSoto. Go turn it off if you want to. I bet you get shot at. But see, the police show up, they got weapons to defend themselves. Our parking lot constantly get broken into. We out there working 16 hours a day, and you come back to the parking lot, somebody done broke in your car. Now you just lost all the money you made today. Now who want to come back to work the next day? You got guys moving their cars around certain spots on the lot so they can just be able to see somebody breaking in the car. Now I said, what good is a camera after the person already broke in the car and gone? Yep. I said, what good is it? You can have all the cameras in the world to show the person leaving with your stuff. What good is that after the fact? You're not going to get it back. And plus, it's one thing about being violated. It doesn't matter what they take. If they took 5 cents to $500, the point is you've been violated and you don't feel secure anymore. So now you got to go out and do a job out in the street for 8, 12 to 16 hours a day, wondering if your car is safe back here. You go back there, your window busts, and the first thing they say is call your insurance company. We don't have jurisdiction on the lot. How? You supposed to be protecting us while we out here working. That's another slap in the face. To go on top of the cost of living that they done took 17 years ago. And you still haven't prepared a way for us to get a raise today. So who's in charge of what? Who's running who? Because no one's governing them. It's like they're governing themselves. So we just don't understand. I mean, I understand that we short on time and all that, but it's just, and you get a boot voucher for, like you say, $50 to $100. Boost nowadays cost you $250. And the insurance, like I said, the insurance, cost of living, you took away 40 hours, you took away, you see, you're constantly taking. You're constantly taking. You took 40 hours that we're supposed to receive every 5 years. You took that away. You took the cost of living. I just don't understand. Like I said, you show me a fire hydrant that don't work in your district. When a house is burning down, that hydrant is going to work. But you know who get the things? The quarterback. Not the lineman, the quarterback. And so what are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go? How are we supposed to live? Just keep coming to work, hoping? All hope is gone. I don't know, you don't seem like nobody's...
How long have you worked for the water department?
I've been here for 3 years, and see, I used to work for American Water, which was St. Louis County Water back at the time, and I got laid off of there, and he was going to do a survey on the surrounding counties and cities of pay scale. You don't want to, why go way out there when you go right next door? That's $29 and some change start. It's $29. American Water. $29 start.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
No, that's all right.
29.
Okay, we're gonna have you wrap it up, and then we're gonna have questions, okay?
No, go ahead. I'm good.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Alderman Williams.
Horrible stories, I tell you.
This is why I wanted you all to hear this.
Yeah, it's sad, and man, we appreciate all the hard work you do, but I know that it didn't help you when it comes to trying to feed your family and try to get a decent pay. I think one of the problems we have, I think that we need to look at the water department and public utilities, which I know we already do, kind of selling our water. I know we sell some water to St. Charles, but I think that we really need to talk to the water department, figure out ways we can generate more revenue, not for the brass or not for the administration, but for the hard-working men and women that are out there keeping the water on, and like you said, Mr. Williams, keeping that fire hydrants up and running. It's got to be a better way to do business in this city. And it's our job as elected officials to look into it and to make sure that we can do something. And I think that we will eventually. I really do. You know, you got an excellent chairwoman here. She cares about the city employees. Joanne Williams, you know, has worked with the union so many years. She's excellent. She's professional. She knows exactly what's going on with the city employees and what they need. You got President Reed here. I remember 3, 4, 5 years ago when they were trying to sell the water department, and he spoke up to block that, and he needs to be commended for that. So, you have people that really are working in your interest to try to really help you out, and I know you've been patient. I know you're tired. I know you're fed up. I get it. I know you're at wit's end. But I guarantee you we're going to do all we can to try to help you, men and women, out. Thank you.
And as the alderman from the 26th said, we do have the president of the Board of Aldermen, and he's on all the committees, and he's here. I wanted, as I told you before earlier, I wanted anybody who wanted to hear the stories, because I was so touched. Were you at the Civil Service Commission meeting? You're the one that spoke, the one that talked about you didn't have enough money to pay for your insurance, that you were going in the hole. that touched me. That was a heart-wrenching story for me. And I wanted to make sure that I had a hearing for whoever wanted to come to say this to the members of the Board of Aldermen. So I'm going to ask President Reed. This is Mr. Williams, who is
How you doing,
an
sir?
employee with the Water Department for 3 years. And this is the President, Louis Reed.
Well, first, thank you, Mr. Williams, for your story. I caught the tail end of it, but I could tell it was, it was a very moving story. And I have to just really commend the chairwoman. This is, out of all my years at the Board of Aldermen, this has to be the first that I've been able to attend a committee hearing and hear directly from some of the city employees that are directly affected, right? When we had a major budget crunch when we were doing furloughs, we heard some then, but that was, kind of a special case. But this type of testimony could truly begin to make a difference in the way the city structures its budgets and sets its priorities. Because without those stories, the only thing we hear, when they go before Ways and Means, you hear from the department heads, and that's just about it, right? But this takes it to a whole new level. And wow, I think every member of the Board of Aldermen needs to hear some of the things just that I've just heard in just this couple minutes that I've been here. Again, thank you for your work and your service. Understand that it's a priority of mine and certainly the other members of this committee to begin to structure budgets where they actually hit their intended targets, so that they are helping so that you're receiving fair compensation for the work that you're doing each and every day. And there's nothing else I can do but say thank you for your service, and your testimony today will make a difference.
I appreciate it, and it's like I say, people don't acknowledge the point that we are skilled workers. If you could get to the mic. People don't acknowledge that these guys sitting back here are all skilled workers. If you ever came and stood over,
Speaking to the mic, so like that. There
if you ever came and stood over one of the holes that we dig out, that's 15, 20 feet deep, where we look like we're about 2 feet high, or maybe lower, like an ant, and we're down there repairing water lines that you can have water tonight, then you will see that we are skilled workers on all aspects. But do we receive a skilled worker's pay? No.
So I want to say again, Alderwoman from the 1st, November, all of November, we did not have water half of the day. Okay, so I do know what you were doing. So that's why I tell you, I'm very appreciative. I know I was calling right at Thanksgiving. Mr. Scobie will tell you, I got his home number, okay?
I was out there.
Right, so I do know what it takes. But I want to tell you what has been the most surprising thing for me, and that is that you all are on these 16-hour shifts and that you don't get to work overtime without permission, and that you're kind of on a schedule like a fireman almost. And so to hear this, and would you mind sharing what your rate of pay is? Do you mind?
I think I'm at $14.
And
Or a little bit more than 14. 14.73, I think it is.
and that's for the past 3 years, you've made approximately the same thing?
I received my 1.5, which is probably about 17 cents. So,
Okay, and so, again, so you're the person that disturbed me. I mean, I went home to my husband talking about you. You should have heard this young man talking about he can't pay for his insurance. I told you I come from working class people, so that is impressive. I want to thank you again for coming out. I do hear you, and I am appreciative, not just because personally you were taking care of my street, because I told you all there when I came to the Civil Service Commission, I think you're all first responders, okay? That was not me blowing smoke. I really do believe it. I'm friends with people who clean up One of the people lives right down the street from me in my ward, cleans our offices. I'm friends with the people. I know them as people. I know hard work means everything. I get on young people when they say, I ain't gonna flip no burgers. I say, well, if you can't do anything else, that's how you make money. When I graduated from, I'll tell you a story. When I graduated from WashU School of Law, I had to take one other class because I had surgery. And so no one would hire me. Everybody told me with a law degree from Washington University, well, you haven't taken the bar yet, and, well, you won't keep this job if you apply for it, because as soon as you pass the bar, you'll leave. So my husband's grandmother, they had some little old black ladies who needed their refrigerators and stuff. With a law degree, I went and cleaned the refrigerators. I did that humbly because I needed to earn money, and nobody would hire me. Okay, overqualified, underqualified. But I never was ashamed of that because I'm a cleaner to this day. I like things in this place, and so I tell people, don't be ashamed of your job. Whatever job you do, you should do the best. My mother raised me, once the task is once begun, never leave it till it's done. Be the labor, great or small, do it right or not at all. I'm the person that will try to do it right. So I do appreciate everything you all are doing. I do hear you. I understand why you're upset. And as I said before, I hope we have some wiggle room in this budget because I don't like hearing what I'm hearing today.
And you value $1 too.
I do. I might even have my first one.
You to value $1, but like I say, those guys back there, as well as myself, you talk about skilled workers. We are skilled workers.
I understand. So we might need to look at some reclassifications.
Yeah, change the name, that changes the dollar.
Okay,
It's one thing I learned. If you change the title, it changes the dollar.
thank you.
Madam
Okay, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, hold on. There's some more questions for you. Sorry, President.
No, this is just brief. Now, you guys don't receive differential pay, do you, at night?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Uncle Sam gets that.
Okay, now that's what I'm trying to clarify. What's the 1.5? What is that?
That's the raise.
That's the raise.
That's the raise you
That's
got?
the raise.
One, okay, all right. And so the differential pay is what, the 17 cent you was talking about?
That's what I got off the 1.5.
That's his raise, 17.
That was the raise.
But okay, no, what I'm just saying, you work during the day, you don't receive differential pay. But like, you know, like the police or sometime, or let's say a shift worker, especially in a factory, if you work at night, you get a differential pay.
Yes.
So you guys, do you receive that?
Well, when we have to work at night, we do.
You get a differential?
Yeah, but most of the time we work we're
Right.
only on shift change. We work during the day.
Okay, so like an emergency water break main,
Then we receive it if
you'll
you
get it?
come in at night.
Okay, if you
Yes.
come in at night, all right.
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
just wanted to clarify that, but like, yeah, we appreciate it. I know that in the wintertime, you guys out there when it's cold, and you're down in that hole and digging, you're dealing with that water, and that's a tough job, man, you know, so you need to be commended for what you're doing, you really do. Right, okay, thank you.
President Reed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You said if we change the title, we change the job. What's your current title? I'm sorry, I missed.
Right now, it's just maintenance, and that
Ma-
can just, when you say maintenance, that can be sweeping the floor.
So if you were at Missouri Water, what would the title be there?
Actually, it would be maintenance,
Maintenance, but
but it would
is
say
there?
maintenance $29 an hour.
There you go, there you go, there you go.
That's the major difference
That's the
there.
difference, that's
Yeah,
the
that's the
difference.
major difference.
That's the, all right, are there any other titles that would be more appropriate for the job?
I'm pretty sure there is, like the pipe fitters. See, if you call us a pipe fitter and see how much money we get.
Oh, yeah.
Call us a pipe fitter. It wouldn't be under $30 an hour,
Yeah.
and that's what we do. We're pipe fitters. And see, matter of fact, we're better than pipe fitters because we put pipes together that's 36 inches, some of them big as this room. They don't even do that.
Yeah, that's good, very good
They don't
point.
do that.
Yeah.
Only thing they can do is put a pipe together in your house.
But let's not, we're gonna, remember I said everybody is important.
I'm just
okay?
saying.
So we're just gonna
I'm
discuss
just
on
saying,
how to make you better.
I'm just
We
saying,
ain't gonna hate on the pipe fitters,
I'm just
okay?
saying, well, we're pipe fitters.
I
But we're
understand.
not acknowledged as pipe fitters.
But we're not gonna hate on the people that do the
No,
small
I'm not
pipes,
hating. I'm not
okay?
hating on them. But I'm not hating. You can't hate on somebody that make 3 times as much money as I do. You can't hate on them.
Okay,
You can just try to join them.
yes.
And so, like I say, you've been taken away for 17 years. It's time to give back. It's 2020. people at McDonald's make more money than us, the supervisors. They make more money than us.
And how many,
People, definitely White Castle.
yeah, how many years have you been with the city?
City here, I've been here for 3 years. I was with St. Louis County for 7.
And then
Then I'm-
but
now I'm in the
3
city.
years. Okay. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you.
You have any more? You have any more? Next.
Mr. Ben Harmon?
And Mr. President, these are all people that came to oppose. Nobody came to support the pay bill. Everybody's here to oppose. Okay. Mark, good
I'm here.
afternoon.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Alderman. Thank you for those of you that chose to attend tonight. As I said at the last meeting, I spoke behind Mr. Williams, and that's a hard story to follow. It really touches at your heart. And one thing he did mention was our workers that use the food bank. And when state or when city employees are eligible for state assistance, shame on us. Shame on us as a city that we can't give these. And I'm glad, Madam Chair, to say you say they're all first responders. Because every 2 years, our union develops a motto, and yes, I'm with AFSCME, I'm the service and rep. We're the union that didn't sign on because the members chose not to. Not because I didn't have a vote, the staff didn't have a vote, the members chose not to support the 1.5. Do I think Mr. Franks would give us more if he could? Absolutely, I believe he would. But as I started this job 1.5 years ago, he told me that the water plant had the nickname of the plantation. And as you heard Mr. Williams say, it still has the nickname of the plantation. And I find that disheartening, especially coming from AFSCME, the union that just recognized the 50th anniversary of Dr. King, who was killed with us, with the sanitation workers we still represent today, who do the same jobs that these men and women in this room do. And it's a lot about respect. It's just not the pay. It's about the respect and the dignity to get what you deserve, because they are the first responders, whether they're the Alaska State Troopers, whether they're the teachers that we represent, whether they're the sanitation workers. They're there to respond, and like I said, you can't put out a fire if you don't have water. We represent the men and women in blue, and we support them. Glad to see that they're doing well. They deserve more, but we deserve more. And it says something for this city, because it is an oppression. And you have to ask yourself why. Why is it an oppression? Look around at the room at the diversity in the workforce. That's why we get away with oppression, and why the city workers, I believe, in St. Louis are oppressed. But I was glad to see the turnout. I know Prop P was very important for the county. We represent the county correction workers. They saw a 15% raise in one day. For every 5 years, they got an extra 2%. So a 15-year male or female veteran walking in that door saw 22%. The way that happened was those officers showed up at that county commission meeting every month. They showed pictures of themselves beaten up. That doesn't happen to most of us at work every day. But it does happen out there on the streets, especially when you're there to shut somebody's water off. You know, we said we heard it and seen it in Laclede, but we see it in the streets all the time. The person coming to shut your water off is not your friend. Even the children know that mom and dad were going to suffer tonight because we don't have our water. But I think what these folks want is the respect. This is 2018, and I want to say just last year, when they were remodeling and putting the north and south refuge together, they put a temporary building together for the drivers. Didn't even give them a spot to wash their hands to have their dinner. And they're doing the dirtiest job in the city. When we called, they sent a box of sanitation wipes. That's what they sent them. It took 3 days to get the respect they deserve. So this is more than just about pay. And if it takes to show up at every meeting, if it takes to start gathering our workers, that's what we continue to do. And thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. Okay, Alderman Williams?
No, I appreciate your comment, appreciate your hard work. That's all I have to say. Real well spoken. Thank you.
President Reed?
I was I was trying to write real fast when you were talking about the raise in the county. You said that they went from 15 to 20%. Go over that again, that raise.
They went, 15% is what they got across the board. So that was everybody got 15%. And then you got an extra 2 for every 5-year seniority. So a 15-year plus veteran got 22% in one day.
In one day.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, and thank you for enlightening.
Mr. Harmon? Excuse me. So, I get to ask questions too. So, since your union decided not to sign on, how do you anticipate what's going to happen here? What do you think is going to happen now?
Well, I think several of the members said, take, take, take. I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to get what we're given. That's what we've been told, and that's what they're going to have to accept.
Okay, do you have any suggestions did you make any suggestions about how we could change things? I asked somebody else that, I'm going to ask you the same thing. A lot of times I hear people who complain, but if you have suggestions, have you made those to?
We got to think outside the box. Maybe we need a Prop E for employees, huh?
Okay.
Because, when we put a Prop P, it singled a certain group out, which that group was much well-deserved and much needed. We understand that. But you can't put one above the other. We have reserves in many different departments. Water has reserves. Water is a moneymaker. They put money into the general fund every year, but we can't pay them because they're making contributions.
So that's my next question. So we just took money from the treasurer's office, her reserves.
Yes, 10 million.
So, yes, so what I don't understand, because the airport and the water department are our enriched departments who have a, what do you call it, enterprise account. So I always thought that you all were just doing, and hearing this was really surprising to me. So what are you saying happens to that money? Is it in reserves and not going to pay the workers? Is that what you're saying?
With a 30-year matrix of 1.5%, it's definitely not going to pay the workers. That's for sure.
So it's interesting to me that we would take money from the treasurer and say she can't have reserves, but we got these reserves over in the water department. And so my question is, then why don't we use the reserves to pay the people, since we want to take it from the treasurer?
I agree.
Interesting. So that's kind of like we're being hypocrites with the city of St. Louis. We want to keep our reserves but take them from someplace else. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I too, we've talked a lot about the men and women that do the jobs. I wanted to make real quick, and I'll be, one thing that hit me, the heavy equipment operators for the refuse. They're working robotic arms. One of the gentlemen told me, I'm not a heavy equipment operator, I'm a transformer. And that kind of stuck with me. But also we have some of our ladies here tonight too from environmental services for the airport, that, no matter where you work or what you do, you have an important role. And just wanted to recognize them for being here and standing up as well.
So I want to make it clear that it's not Mr. Frank who is not paying you this
We
money.
understand.
So I just want to make that clear. So we got a budget director, though, who I'm going to have a real conversation with, Paul Payne, about, so why are we dipping into other people's reserves if we don't want our reserves dipped into? So, again, I apologize. I thought the water workers and the airport people were making pretty good money, because we do have those enterprise accounts, and that was supposed to be, so that you could be taken care of. So I appreciate you coming and enlightening me. Does anybody else have any other questions? You have any? Thank you very much.
I just want to follow. You're exactly right. I mean, years ago, if you worked with the water department or refuse, that was supposed to be a pretty good salary, and that was probably a long time ago. So it's obvious that we really haven't kept up with the time of paying you correctly. But it was always, that reputation, especially with the water department. If you work for the water department, you did all right. But it's obvious that's not true. Okay, so.
Then we have one last person.
Yes, ma'am, Mr. Robert Branham.
And who are you, sir? When you come up here, would you tell us your name? Wait till you get here, and I want you to say your name, what department you work for, and how long you've been there.
Okay. Pen don't like.
You need another pen?
Oh, it's all right. My name is Terry Kendrick. I work
Terry?
for Terry, T-E-R-R-Y. Kendrick. I work for the water department. Worked there a little over 5 years. Okay. Every morning I get up, I watch the news.
Talking to this so we can hear you.
Every morning I get up, I watch the news. All I hear about is firemen, police. Okay? And when we come here, all we hear is firemen and police. But do you drink water?
Have it right here. Carry it with me at all times.
Water? Do? Soda pop? Anything? Do you take baths? Okay. So why we're not in the conversation? As the firemen and the police. Without water, the firemen can't put out no fire. You don't need a police in your life every day, do you? Do you need a fireman in your life every day? But you need water. So give us what we deserve. Just do. We ain't out here not doing anything. You getting water, and we're working hard for it. And we got the best water in the country. So do us right, so we can, be happy too. Everybody getting $6,000. Hey, we take 10. I'm shooting for the stars, but I just wanted you to hear me. It's hard at the water department. I like it, and I got a lot of friends there, and we want to continue to do it.
Mr. Kendricks, what do you do at the water department?
I'm water maintenance.
Okay.
I'm all around, construction, everything else too. That's all we do. We do it all. Thank you.
Alderman Williamson?
We hear you, Mr. Kendricks. Really appreciate the hard work that you're doing. I know it's a tough go. God bless you. God bless you all. Just hang in there. And I think this is an excellent meeting. You got some people that's going to show some strong interest. I believe in the chair lady, and I'm sure the president, Mr. Lewis Reed. So it won't go unnoticed. So just hang tough. I guarantee you we're going to try to do anything we can to help. I think one thing we have to understand, and I'm not using an excuse or anything like that, the city of St. Louis does have budget problems. Now, there are some departments we can probably cut into the fat to kind of spread the love around. I get it. The St. Louis County generates a lot more money than we do, especially in their sales tax. So one problem we have, we just don't generate as much money as we used to, but we need to find a way to do that. Now, we may have to raise some fees, or I don't know what we're going to do. I think Proposition P was fine, but me personally, and not that you men and women deserve a raise, but I don't want to tax the residents of the city of St. Louis anymore when it comes to needing things like for the police and fire and what have you. Don't get me wrong, you know, the regular employees of the city of St. Louis deserve a raise too. That's something we probably should have thought of when we did Proposition P, to put something in there for the water departments and the refuse and what have you, and other, you know, civil service jobs that need to raise. But as an elected official, you know, and I'm sure the rest of us up here, we get a lot of complaints because, like you say, it's take. You know, your income is not being increased, but at the same time, you're paying out more in your household. You're paying more for trash. You know, you're paying more for MSD. You know, your real estate tax is going up. So it's not fair to the residents of the city of St. Louis to continue to be taxed. You understand what I'm saying? So we do have a problem of trying to find this revenue, and but you know, that's what we get elected to do, that so we can, you know, help the employees in the city of St. Louis. So, I mean, you know, you got my interest, and I'm gonna put in some time to see what I can do to impress us finding extra revenue to pay you, men and women. So, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Soon, please.
President Reed?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kendrick, you said you've been there for 5 years?
A little over 5 years.
A little over 5 years. And what's your rate of pay, if you don't mind?
Right now, I just started at, I made water maintenance about April 1st, and it went up to $15.24.
15. And I don't know if you have this data, but do you know, like, what a comparable job like yours in other municipalities in the region, you know what they would pay? You have any idea? Is it that $29?
I don't know, but I know it's more than what we're getting paid.
Yeah, Mr. Williams shaking his head, yes, $29. So it is, it's twice.
He
It's
was
twice.
a part of it. I
It's
have.
twice, yeah,
I was machining before I came here,
okay.
and I got laid off. They kept laying me in and out, but I was making this, what I make now, a week. But another thing, I'm the one they was talking about, that the insurance.
Oh,
They
that
take
you would,
almost $700 out of my insurance. I go home with, if I don't have no overtime, $300 a week. How can I live? How can me and my family live on $300 a week every 2 weeks?
wow.
You know. And I prayed about that. You know, only the Lord brought me through this. But I can't keep doing this. Can't. We need a fast fix. But not just me, for everybody in here.
We'll have one more.
Because when I was a machinist, my union did my insurance. I didn't have to pay a dime, but all I paid was union dues. That's about what, $78, $80 a month? Now I'm paying $681, and then it's finna go up to $735. Now I'm gonna take home $150 a week, so we're gonna be out in the street. You know? That's I got a job, but it ain't paying me nothing. Now, anybody else probably can live with it. I can't. I got to do something. Oh, that's all I'm asking. It ain't got to be a big fix, but give us a progression. Let's start and come on up with us. We gonna hang with you, but show us something. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excuse me. Now, you say you've been there 5 years and you're now at 1524. Do you recall what you started out at?
At 1347.
Oh, you've actually made a couple of dollars.
Well,
No,
I got-
I'm just saying, because the other guy said he worked 5 years.
yes, but
Right, okay.
see, he came in behind.
Okay.
When they started that metric stuff, that metric system, I got a little raise in there.
So aren't they
between.
still doing the metric system?
Yes, but it's 1.5.
Okay.
But see, if we had 2% before that.
Okay. And now you said your insurance used to be 681 and now it's gonna be the 735?
735.
Who's covered under your insurance? Is that you?
Me and my family.
And your family would be you?
Me,
Your
my
spouse?
wife, and my son.
And that's 735? That's when-
735.
That starts in June or?
That starts in the 15th of this one. The 14th of the 15th, when we next pay. Oh, yeah, I just said April 1st. No, I was just
No, he
promoted
said
to
he
that.
got a promotion, right. I heard that, okay. Okay. Mr. Kendricks, again, I respect all of you all. I believe in working class people. I want to see what we can do with this. This is disheartening to hear this. And you said why you want to be in the conversation. This is how you get in the conversation. Now, even though these aldermen are not here, you all should fill the room up. I'm going to tell you how you really get in the conversation. Go to your ward meetings. You have an alder person.
Ma'am, we can't. We barely coming here.
Okay, so send your representative, send your spouse, send your somebody. You have to be politically active, not, and I'm not just saying, vote. You got to let people know. You have to let people know what's going on with you. I, as an alder person, did not have an idea until right now. Okay, so you got to promote that. You got to put out. This is how much we're making, and this is how much we're not.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the kind. The police are active. That's why they're in the conversation. The fire people went up there and went to Jefferson City and said, "Everything you do for the police, you do for me too." Okay, that's the kind of activism that gets you in the conversation. When you make the point that we need water always.
Always.
And you are absolutely right. People think I carry coffee, but I don't drink coffee. But I do drink
But
water
you need
all the time.
you need water with
And
coffee.
water in St. Louis
The
is
coffee.
some of the best that we have, so I agree with that. But again, I had absolutely no knowledge that the people at the water department and one lady we're gonna let speak from the airport, I just thought that you all had enterprise accounts and you were getting taken care of. So I wanna say you're represented, that you and your union need to be louder about these things, okay? Have you ever heard the saying that the squeaky wheel gets the oil?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have to have information. I cannot make good decisions with just part of the information. I was not for the police, I did not vote for the police to raise taxes. I'm with the alderman from the 26th. It's not because I'm not for police, it's that I've been here before he came here. And so we have taxed the citizens to death, starting with in 93 when Freeman, the mayor then was Bosley, passed the taxes that had not been able to get passed for years. And then ever since then, we've never said no to a tax. We've never seen a tax we didn't see. And so although you're hurting, the people who live in the city, who are the people we represent, and that includes you, they're hurting with all of these taxes, okay? And then they don't see services on many occasions. So we pay now $14 for trash pickup. I didn't get trash picked up in my own alley. I had to call the trash people. I called Nick Young, who's there at the trash, and said, "Hey, Nick, what's up?" Haven't picked up my trash in over a week. So I also was not paying for, supporting paying $14 for that very fact. Until we put this money in a fund that should be on the internet for anybody to see where the money is going to and how the trash is being picked up, I'm not supporting anything. I'm not supporting any taxes, and it's not against the workers, because I think we need to cut back our expenses. As I said before, we have $6 million that's going to come our way in a few years because we will finish paying for that, quote, football stadium convention center. We need to put that back into our funds, pay our workers, make sure our services build up, our reserves, do the things that we're supposed to do. We have continued, I first was elected in '91. We have tried to be a first-tier city. Nothing wrong with St. Louis, but everybody can't be Chicago and New York. Some people got to be St. Louis, and you got to be proud of being a St. Louisan, okay? I grew up in Illinois, but I lived in St. Louis for most of my adult life, and I'm proud to live in St. Louis. You don't have to have the most football teams, baseball, we got a baseball team. You don't have to have every team, and you most certainly don't have to be I think, irresponsible with paying for the hockey team to fix stadiums and things up when you don't pay any rent. I am a landlord, And I do not allow anybody to live in my property that don't pay rent. And most certainly, if I had a piece of commercial property and you were going to build out, I might give you a forbearance on your rent for a certain amount of time, but you would have to pay for your own improvements. So I think that we are very foolish when it comes to, because we keep anticipating this is going to make us more money and we're going to bring more taxes in and we're going to bring more in. But we are not giving services, which are running people away, and we're not appreciating people like yourselves. So I want to thank all of you all for coming out here to speak to us today. And I want to thank all the workers that do their job because, as I said again, and I will end this with, all of you are first responders to me and very important. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. I want to give you a hand. We have one lady that did not sign up, but we've had all male, so I'm going to always give the female a chance to talk. If you will sign up, please, I appreciate it.
I'm sorry. My name is Harriet. My name is Harriet Corwell. And I work at the airport. And I've been there for 23 years, and I make $29,000 a year. Okay?
What do you do at the airport?
I'm a housekeeper.
Okay.
And we haven't had raises in years. And I came out here to be heard because we need help. We need a whole lot of help. We need equipment to work with. We need everything. We need a raise because we haven't had one in so long.
Yes, ma'am.
And I raises because I want to retire next year, but they would have to do it how we get raises and stuff, because you just can't quit your job if you ain't got nothing to lean on.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I had to say.
Wait a minute, just in case we have, Alderman Williamson might have questions for you.
I appreciate you, ma'am, what you're doing, and 23 years is a long time, and 29,000 is a low paying, wage, and God bless you. That's tough to be there that long and make that little amount, but I know you're proud. You're a proud employee. We really appreciate what you're doing, and these stories and that we're hearing are very, very heart wrenching. They really are. But I just want to commend you, just hanging there and keep the good work up. And like I said before, I'm gonna do all I can to help the city employees out so we can be sure to see that you get a better shake when it comes to your wages.
Yeah, we don't sleep together, but we do need a raise.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. And I know equipment's a problem too, so hold on, wait a minute. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
President Reed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this Mrs. Caldwell? All right. The first, thank you for your testimony, and thank you for taking out the time to come down today to let us hear your story. You said that you haven't had any raise at the airport for how long? You said never. I don't know if you meant that.
No.
It's been a while.
Quite a while.
Quite a while. And what's your? And you're in housekeeping.
I'm in housekeeping with the city.
Are you?
And see, he didn't mention the city. He
Yeah.
mentioned the water people and everybody. We the lowest paying on the totem pole, but we still got a legit job.
Yeah. And then what's your job title? Is it a housekeeping
I'm a custodian.
custodian? And what about for overtime or anything like that? How does that work for you? If you do they
Only
pay you?
time I get overtime is like working on holidays or whatever.
Okay. And what is the pay for that? Do you remember?
We get time and a half.
Time and a half. But that's only on holidays.
It's only on holidays. We still need a
Do
raise.
you get I know. They try. I know. Do you get paid for over your lunch hour or anything like that? Anything else that we should consider here while we're reviewing
That's
this?
the main thing.
The
a
main raise. And the health insurance, are you seeing the same health insurance increases
Yes.
that Mr.
Everything,
Kendrick is seeing?
we got the same benefits everybody else got, but they going up and our pay is going down.
Oh, there you go. All right, thank you so much, Ms. Coleman.
All right,
Thank-
thanks.
Ms. Caldwell? And I just want to say thank you. I don't have any questions, but I want to say thank you. Because when you need somebody to do the cleaning,
I'm
somebody
not
who knows
ashamed.
you
I'm
need-
not ashamed
Yeah,
because
you-
they don't pay the bills.
yes,
You
ma'am.
need checks to
You
pay
need
the
somebody who
bills.
know what they're doing. Now, or were you always in housekeeping or as custodian? Did you start out?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you because 23 years is admirable, and I thank you for your city services.
Oh, well, thank you.
Have a good day. Thank
Thank you for listening.
Okay. So as we said before, we were not going to try to pass this bill out. We didn't have a quorum anyway, but I did want to hear from people. So at this point, we're going to call the end to the public hearing. Can't even speak anymore. Public employees hearing, and we are adjourned. And the few people that I asked to speak to, I would appreciate, because I really do intend to have lunch with you, and I really want to talk to a couple of you all, if you don't mind, okay? And thank you again for everyone coming, and thank you, Linda and Frank and Richard, I appreciate it. And Joanne, who I begged to come here in Williams, she's my backup, okay? So she's the person sending me these great questions to ask, okay? Thank you so much.
Good meeting, everyone. Very well.